Hi, this is Richard Howell from DPS Telecom. I'm going to be going through how to set up a TMON analog for a NetGuardian G5. So in this particular example, I'm going to set up the internal temperature probe. So we'll go through and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the screen right here. This is going to show you basically the TMON login screen. So I'm going to show you from start to finish. I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going into the edit interface right now. And I am setting up a device module, so this is actually going to be under the TMON LNX devices section. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look for my device in here. In fact, if I know the name of it, I can just type in Fresno. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit Selected Devices. Now, if you see in here, I actually have my internal temperature set up. So one thing you'll notice is that any analogs that you're not using, just go ahead and leave those blank. For the internal temperature probe, it's a little bit special. You actually are you don't have to worry about the scaling at all for this because it is built into the unit itself. It's going to get the scaling based off of what you set the unit to. So in this particular example, I just give it a description. I set the unit to lowercase I and capital F. So this is going to give me Fahrenheit. And then I can go ahead and configure my thresholds here. So here I'm going to change these thresholds from what I had them set earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and decrease the value of these. So I'm going to set this to 90 for major over. I'm going to set this to 85, and I'll go ahead and leave my two unders. So basically what this says is if my temperature goes above 90, I'm going to get a major over and a minor over alarm. It actually throws both alarms. If it's anywhere between 85 and 40, that's considered the acceptable level for this temperature, and it's not going to trigger alarm. If it goes below 40, it hits your minor under alarm, and of course if it hits 35 or lower, it's going to hit your major under alarm. Okay, so I'll go ahead and set that. Again, you don't have to worry about the scaling because I did set this as lowercase I capital F, and that's a special unit value that actually tells the TMON it is an internal temperature probe. If I set that to C, it would be Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and go into monitor mode and configure this analog to show up in an analog group. Because right now the TMON is storing the value, and you could run reports that would show the historical value of this analog, but it's not until you actually set up an analog group that you can see it in the monitor interface. Okay. So you can see here I need to basically create an analog. So I'm going to go to Analog, Create Analog Group. I'm going to call this Fresno Analogs. So this is what will actually show up here, this name on the left-hand side. You can give it a more descriptive description if you want to, but I'm just going to call it Fresno Analogs. There we go. Okay, so this global checkbox basically tells you whether or not this analog is going to show up for your user or other users in the TMON system. I'm going to go ahead and set global so that other users can basically see the same analogs that I can. Okay, so now you can see I have my new analog group here. If I go ahead and select that, I'm basically going to be viewing my analog group, but there's nothing in here yet. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit Group. And so I've got this little worksheet here. I can configure my group and change the description here if I want to. You can see I have no analogs currently registered in here. So I'm going to go ahead and select my device from the drop-down list. And you can see my internal temp, that's the one that I configured. I'll just go ahead and drag that into the registered analog section. Now you can go ahead and drag multiple ones if you had that as well. Keep in mind the NetGuardian G5s, if you have the internal battery monitoring, what that basically means is the internal power inputs are tied to analogs 5 and 6. You could also configure those as well. It depends on your build option though. Not all NetGuardians are configured to have the internal temp or the battery monitoring. It just depends on how you get that configured. Okay, so that's automatically saved once I drag it over there. So I can close this tab. And now you can see here I actually have an analog configured. So what I need to do is double click on this and it should show me the analog value in the screen here. And so now you can see I'm actually showing the analog value. It actually shows me the units. So if I had lowercase I and capital C, that would show me that Celsius like I talked about earlier. It also tells me the thresholding that we have here. And there's a couple things you can do with this view. You can actually change this to be something like a gauge. So usually when I do temperatures, I like to do this vertical gauge right here. And so I need to enable Adobe Flash for this, so let me just go ahead and refresh this. These gauges are really nice to look at something and visually see how the analog's set up. And you can see here, it makes it really easy to see where your thresholds are and where you're about to cross, and so on. So there you have it. That's how you set up basically an analog on a NetGuardian. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions or anything like that, feel free to call our 800 number. I'll put that on the screen right now, or email us at our email that's showing on the screen. Thanks. Bye.